My name is Carlin Burisenko, and you're listening to the Actively Unwoke podcast. Well, at least for the moment you are. At least for the moment you're listening to the Actively Unwoke podcast. And what I mean by that is that, we're in an interesting time for the so-called anti-woke movement, aren't we? When I came up with the name Actively Unwoke, it was for the last book that I wrote. Now, the last book that I wrote, I conceived of it at the end of 2020, when, of course, woke insanity was peaking in this country. I wrote the book and finished it at the beginning of 2021. It didn't get published until 2022 because that's just the way book publishing works, sadly, which is why I no longer will be working with traditional publishers moving forward and just publishing my own books because it just takes too long. But now we're at the end of 2024. And I've been in the so-called anti-woke movement for a long, long time. It feels like forever. Throughout my life, I've bounced around to different careers. I started my career after college in higher education and doing marketing and social media and that sort of stuff. While I was doing marketing and online stuff, I met an organizational psychologist. I met a corporate trainer, and she inspired me and she mentored me, and that's what inspired me to go get a PhD in organizational psychology, because I wanted to be able to have the same impact on other people. And so I transitioned from doing marketing and consulting in higher education to doing industrial organizational psychology for a full time. I had my own practice. I was consulting all over the country, and then I tripped and fell into politics when my article about being a Democrat going to a Trump rally went viral at the beginning of 2020. And I never intended to get into this political sphere. I never intended to be a public person. But all of a sudden I had a massive platform and I had a lot of people who wanted to talk to me. And I thought that, this is my opportunity to serve people at a larger scale. And that's when I started applying my industrial organizational psychology knowledge to understanding what this monster was, this DEI monster that had taken over all of corporate training. And I was in corporate training when this happened. I watched it happen. I watched it at the Society for Human Resources Management Conference, which is the biggest HR conference in the world. I presented at it every year as a featured speaker for them. And you would go into their exhibit hall, and the whole thing was taken over by diversity training, when the year prior it was normal. And then all of a sudden you had all this stuff. And so I started trying to reverse engineer the diversity training. This was back in 2020. And I started running across different things relating to white fragility, critical race theory. That was the big topic at that time. I was one of the first people talking about critical race theory before most people even knew what critical race theory was. I saw the rise of gender ideology. I saw the rise of transing kids. I've broken more stories about grooming in school than any other independent journalist in the country that I know of. Maybe someone's done more than me, but I don't know of anyone who has, and I've looked. I started doing deep dives into the far left. I started, going undercover at leftist events, and that was the real eye-opener, because that clued me into where all of this was coming from. And at some point in the last 4+ years, I guess it would be 5 years now, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. So I guess it would be 5 full years now. At some point in the last 5 years, things have just broken irreparably. And a lot of people have lost their way. And a lot of people who used to be fighting the good fight are now quite literally turning into the enemy. And so I started this by saying, I don't know if this is going to be the Actively Unwoke podcast for that long. And that's because I'm thinking about changing the name. And the reason I'm thinking about changing the name is and I've built an entire brand on this whole unwoke thing, right? I have so many unwoke things. I used to, my book is called Actively Unwoke, the last book I wrote. I have the Unwoke art store. I have an Unwoke wiki. I have all of this Unwoke branded, the Unwoke Underground. I've got all this Unwoke branded stuff. And there is some level in which I like it. And there is some level in which I do believe that a lot of people, that's the terminology that they're going to respond to right? If you're new to this space, if you're new to understanding the left, and I think it can be easy for us to forget sometimes that there are still so many people who are new at this. There are still so many people who need to be introduced to this. That's why I wrote my book, Actively Unwoke, in the first place. It wasn't meant to be an intellectual analysis of the situation. It wasn't meant to be a full-on history, novel or whatever. It was meant to introduce new people to this thing that was happening all around them that they didn't understand, but they knew that something was wrong. And it was written to be that kind of easy introduction that people could, wrap their heads around without speaking academic. And that was a purposeful thing. I don't think people are stupid, but I think people are busy. And so oftentimes people act stupid because they're not actively listening, when in fact it's just that they don't have the time to do it, or they feel really rushed. They have to go from one thing to the next. So they just aren't paying close attention, and then they don't retain the information because it's not presented in a way that they can consume quickly. So I've been over here trying to make all these resources for a long time to explain to people in plain English what's going on. And I'm going to still continue to do that moving forward. But as I've been focusing on my own thing, and I really did put my head down from the time I finished my book in early 2021 until probably a year ago. Actually, maybe it's not as recent as I think, till about a year ago. I put my head down and I just focused on what I was doing. And I focused on my research and I focused on my analysis, and I stopped listening to other people. And then when my head came back out from underwater because I needed to find corroboration or at least seek out more information in the greater landscape to compare it to what I was working on, I realized the whole thing had fallen apart. I realized the people who I thought I could trust as highly effective activists just a couple years ago are no longer there. I realized I was sitting in a political landscape in which the right, which was supposed to be the antidote to the left, had turned into the left, if not even worse. I realized I was in a landscape in which there were just a lot of people who were more interested in putting clickbait up to go viral on Twitter to get that next moment where they're getting all sorts of likes and retweets, that they just started focusing on the most surface level things that don't even matter. They stopped doing research, they stopped doing real analysis, and it was all just about the viral tweets and how many likes can you get, how many retweets can you get, all this stuff. And what that did is, in the so-called anti-woke space, that made everyone a competitor. When I first started getting involved in the anti-woke space, people worked together. I used to be able to work with Chris Rufo. I used to be able to work with James Lindsay. I used to be able to work with Corey DeAngelis. And to some extent, I still can work with Corey DeAngelis. Although he's doing a different thing than I am. I have no ill will towards Corey DeAngelis. I don't have a whole ton of ill will towards Chris Rufo, although I think Chris Rufo has lost his way. And quite frankly, I don't want to work with him given the people he's working with. And James Lindsay has completely lost his fucking mind. I'm sorry to swear, but he has completely lost his fucking mind. And there are many other people out there too. I mean, you look at all of these people that, have been like someone like Billboard Chris. Billboard Chris isn't even American, by the way. What is he even doing here? Why isn't he trying to fix this in Canada? He isn't even American. The reason he's here is because he's being paid by the Daily Wire to do this. It's all a grift. It's not real. It's just a pretense. None of these people are actually interested in solving the problem. They're just interested in competition. Who can get the most followers? Who can get the most likes? Who can get the most retweets? Who can stage the biggest spectacle? Do you know all those rallies that you see videos of sometimes online? Maybe not so much anymore, but like a couple of years ago, Matt Walsh used to do these rallies where this video would come out and it looked like there was a ton of people there. There was never a ton of people there. They just did it for the video, and then they filmed it close up, so it looked like there was a lot of people there, but there weren't. And I know this because I did a bunch of those rallies in 2020 with Walkaway, where you look at the video, it looks like these huge rallies. You're actually there. There aren't that many people there. But the video looks great, and that's all that matters. The goal became to own the libs at all costs. And now the goal is transitioning because now there is factional warfare going on the right between the classical liberals and the dissident right-wingers who I quite frankly, in my opinion, are actually the real conservatives. And now Elon Musk has completely effed everything up by basically saying to Americans they're stupid and censoring people on Twitter to go back to the way Twitter was before. And if you don't know what's going on with that, a couple days ago, Elon Musk mass banned a number of accounts because they politically disagreed with him and are offering no proof that they broke any law. He's offering no proof that they broke any terms of service. They politically disagreed with him, and so he permanently banned them off the platform. There are 15 accounts right now on Twitter. You can check my Twitter feed, Dr. Carlin B, DrKarlyn, the letter B. You can check my Twitter feed if you want more information about that, but it's like... And even worse than Elon doing that, you have all these so-called anti-woke accounts that are cheering him on. That was one of the things we were fighting against when I got into this space in 2020. We were fighting against big tech censorship. We were fighting against arbitrary bans. We were fighting to be able to have free speech, to be able to express our ideas. That was considered to be a virtue. And now the exact same people that were fighting for that in 2020 are cheering as Elon Musk does exactly the same thing as Jack Dorsey did when he owned the platform before. It is no different. The only difference is that they find the people that Elon Musk is banning now to be really inconvenient for the narrative that they are trying to construct. And they say this over and over and over and over and over again. They find them inconvenient to their narrative. They are disruptive. They are divisive. They're making people doubt us. They're literally saying this. How dare you speak out against the influential and credible people on the platform? How dare you disagree with us? This is the very opposite of unwoke. This is the opposite of anti-woke. This is the definition of woke. And these are the same people who are calling everyone that they disagree with the woke right in order to try to demonize them. The Orwellian nature of what this movement has turned into, it's honestly really upsetting to me. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not going anywhere. Just because I say I might change the name of something, I'm playing around with this idea of the Red Menace right now, which is, the Red Menace is a term that was used in the McCarthy era to basically call communism the Red Menace. It was an anti-communist term. I'm kind of playing around with that, but I don't want people to think I'm quitting or anything, because I'm not, but I do think that we need to recognize the position that we're in, and we need to recognize that there is no quote-unquote anti-woke coalition. There's just a group of tribes. There's a group of tribes that's not working together, most of whom are just pretending to care about so-called woke ideology because it makes a good political narrative. That's the most upsetting thing of all to me. Because I really thought back in 2020 and 2021, I really thought that some of these people cared. And maybe there was a time when they did, but they don't anymore. Sadly, I do still care. I actually care about this, and I wish I didn't. I really wish I didn't. People accuse me of being a grifter all the time, and I just laugh in my head when it happens, because it's like, do you understand how much more money I can make in corporate training? Corporate training was my actual grift. Do you understand how much more I could be earning, like, every single day if I just gave up all of this leftist socialism stuff and went back to corporate training? It makes me sad to even think about it, so I try not to. And, maybe I will go back to corporate training someday, because I am actually really effing good at it. Like, I'm really good at it. But I do sadly actually care about analyzing and decoding the left and teaching people what this is. And I know people think woke is dead because Donald Trump got elected, but I don't think it is. And I think that we are in for a world of hurt come inauguration. Right now we're in that lull period between Christmas and New Year's. Everyone's kind of chilling out. It's cold outside. No one wants to go outside and protest in the cold. But I'm telling you, there are a lot of leftist groups that are gearing up to protest the inauguration, and they're not going to stop after that. And they viewed the Donald Trump presidency as a way that they can recruit more people than they did under the Biden presidency. So woke is not dead. Woke is going to get worse. Donald Trump could cancel all DEI in the federal government. And that's not going to make a difference. Well, it'll make a difference in terms of we're not funding bullshit anymore. Okay, fine, we're not funding bullshit anymore. That's good. But what people don't understand is that DEI is like 5 layers removed from the actual problem. So it's like, you're telling me you've got the flu and you took a cough drop and your throat feels a little bit better for an hour. Okay, that's what DEI is. DEI is the cough drop that makes your throat feel a little bit better. It doesn't cure the flu. It just takes away one of the symptoms of it for a little while. And from what I've seen on the left, it's not even the most important symptom. It's a low-level delivery mechanism. It's a way to kind of like funnel more people who are just liberals, that are just like do-gooder liberals, that just feel like they're doing the right thing. It's a way to funnel more people into the left, but it's not actually even the most important thing the left does to recruit or educate or organize or any of those things. But people are running around declaring woke is dead. We canceled DEI in the government. They're not solving for the correct problem because they don't understand the problem, because they never took the time to analyze the problem. And I did. I took years to analyze this problem. I started doing deep dives into DEI training I started in 2020, but really in earnest in 2021, where I started watching this stuff every single week, and then that turned into every single day, and then that turned into infiltrating their live events and recording them, and then that turned into going undercover at their events. I understand these people, and I understand the left, and what I see has nothing to do with what these influencers and so-called activists are talking about on the right. They're completely unhinged from reality, because their priority was not learning their enemy. Their priority was getting famous and getting retweets and followers and money and all that stuff. So we have to be honest about the situation that we're in, right? We have to be honest about the situation that we're in. And although certainly I'm going to continue forward with analyzing the left and doing all the things I've been doing, I do not see myself as part of any bigger anti-woke movement. I haven't been a part of this in a long time. I took myself out of it because it was so effing dysfunctional. And it's not that I don't want to work with people, but there's no one else out there that I can find right now that is actually serious about doing the type of analysis that I'm doing. And so if no one else wants to do it, okay, I'll do it. But let's not pretend that I have many allies in this space, because the people I used to consider allies are now trying to cancel other people for their speech that they don't like. They're doing everything that the left was doing back in 2020, and they see no problem with it. They're trying to create this factional warfare and demanding that everyone conform to a specific political ideology, or else you are woke. This is literally what they're doing right now. I decline to play this game. So 2024 has been a crazy year. It's been a crazy year. I never expected half of the things that occurred this year to happen. And it's really given me a lot of perspective about the type of, I guess, content creator I want to be moving forward. And the types of things that I want to cover. And the types of things I want to think about. So moving forward into 2025, I want to publish at least 3 books. There's actually more books that I have in my head right now. I'm finishing up the re-education book. It's called Re-Education, The Definitive Anti-Communist Guide to Decoding the Left. You can actually read the chapters as I'm writing them over on redmenacecollective.substack.com. That is a premium Substack that I have just focused on my book publishing. You're also starting to see that Red Menace theme that I'm playing with kind of show up. Red Menace comes from the Red Menace Press, because that's going to be my book publishing company moving forward. That's because I'm self-publishing. So I had to start my own book publishing company. So I called it Red Menace Press. The Red Menace Collective is the VIP group as part of the publishing company, because it's people who are accessing drafts of my book as I'm writing it in real time. That's separate from my main Substack, which is carlin.substack.com, where I publish a lot of my just unwoke stuff in general. So it's a separate product. But the books I want to work on are the re-education book. That should be getting wrapped up in the next couple weeks. We'll get that on sale as soon as possible. Then I want to start, and this actually might take the rest of the year, to be honest. This is actually quite a big project. I want to do what I think of as the only, I'm pretty sure it's the only, please tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I want to do an in-depth analysis of anarcho-communist queer subculture, particularly focusing on zines and manifestos and anarchist writings, because I think that is actually the primary driver of queer culture, is this underground subculture, and I don't think anyone has ever analyzed that from an anti-communist perspective. And so that's something I want to work on. That's something I've been gearing up to. That's a whole book in and of itself, and that's going to be fascinating. What I want to do is I want to go back and trace the development of this queer anti-communist ideology, which I know started in the 60s in 1964, and then just it kind of started blowing up in the early 90s. And this is where we're getting all of the crazy queer stuff that's going on today, is this subculture that started in the 60s, kind of started rumbling a little bit more in the 80s, but really started blowing up in the 90s. Those are the influential places that are driving today's far left activists. I'm absolutely positive of it. I've been going through their zines for a while. I've been trying to create an archive of zines. This is another project I'm working on, is creating a public archive and timeline of the most influential zines and communiques that come out of this particular subculture, so we can see the development of it, and we can see how these ideas molded and evolved over time, and who was influencing them, and how are they involved. You know, people think of queer culture, they think of like Judith Butler and Foucault and, you know, Halpern and all this stuff, and that's all true, but all of those people were involved in this queer anarcho-communist subculture. All of them were. That's where they got their ideas. That's where Judith Butler got her ideas. The idea did not originate with Judith Butler. The idea originated from the queer anarcho-communist subculture that she was a part of. So I want to analyze that, and I want to write about that. And that's going to be a lot more of an analytical book than I've written before. And because my books tend to focus on busy people who are just trying to understand a topic, this I really want to be more of an in-depth analysis. And so that's another book I'm going to be working on. Again, you can get access to all of this over at redmenaccollective.substack.com as I'm writing it. I do also want to go back and work on my dystopian futures book, because and this is a book I've already kind of started, where I want to write a book from the perspective of someone living in the future about the Marxist cultural revolution, because I do currently think the left is going to win. And I think there will be a future date where we look back and say, how did this happen? And so I want to write a book that's basically a person in the future looking back and saying, here is how this happened. Here is how we got to this place. Here is how the American government fell to the Marxist left. And what I want to do is I want to use all the real materials, like everything in the book talking about the downfall of America is going to be real. It's going to be things that are happening right now. All of it's going to be sourced and documented and all that stuff. So it's like a non-fiction, sci-fi, futurist, dystopia kind of written. One of the inspirations I have for it, and this just kind of makes sense, right? It's Winston's journal in 1984, where Winston is like tucked into the corner of his room and he's writing in his journal all of his reflections on the time that he lives in, and he's not supposed to have that journal. And so it's like an illicit thing to do. So that's another book I want to write. I want to put together a standalone socialist dictionary. I want to put together a re-education workbook that goes along with Socialism Saturdays. I want to do a series of online classes. I want to start speaking more, either virtually or in person. There's all sorts of stuff that I want to do in the next year. So I'm not going anywhere, and we're decidedly staying on this anti-communist road. I just want to make it very, very clear that we are on our own. We are not part of some greater unwoke, anti-woke movement or whatever, because that's dead. It's dead. All it is tribalism and infighting and competition and undercutting and defamation and slander and smear campaigns, and to see who comes out on top. And I don't want any part of it. I'll fight when I have to fight. Believe me, James Lindsay wants to tweet about me and lie about me and say I have a personality disorder to his 500,000 followers, which he's done on more than one occasion. I will stand up for myself and I will fight back against him, but I don't want any part of what those guys are doing. I don't want any part of the Turning Point USA bullshit. I'm sorry if you're a fan of Turning Point USA. I am not. I don't want any part of the conservative media establishment because I think they're lying to their audiences and I don't think they're properly informing them. We are on our own. And I know that I have so many people in my community that actually do care about defeating the left. And what I want to do in 2025 is I want to build a fucking army. I want to build a community. And I already have this to a certain extent, but I want to make it even bigger. I want to build a community of people who actually care about this, who are serious, and who are tired of the bullshit coming from the conservative influencers who are, quite frankly, running cover for the real leftist threat in America. I don't care what your politics are. I really don't. I have every type of political ideology on the spectrum in my audience. I literally have National Socialists. I have literal Nazis in my audience. They're self-professed. And you know what? I disagree with them on some things. But when they show up to my audience, when they show up in my chat on my live streams, they're there to learn about the left. Why wouldn't I teach them? Because I disagree with them on things? They're not doing anything hateful to me. I won't allow them to do anything hateful in the chat. So why would I banish them and ridicule them? They're showing up to learn about the left. That's a good thing. I have conservatives. I have MAGA voters. And listen, I have made shitting on conservatives into an art form because I think that the vast majority of conservatives are lazy and they are uninformed and they have no interest in actually fixing the problems that they complain about every single day. But if someone's showing up and they want to learn about the left and they do want to be part of the solution, then welcome. I have libertarians, independents, disaffected lefties, politically homeless people. I even have communists and socialists who watch my content because they say I know their ideology better than they do. Now, they're watching for a different reason. They don't want to defeat the left, but isn't it funny that I have actual communists and socialists who come to my channel to watch my content because I know their ideology better than they do? So I'm not going to buy into this idea that you have to be a classical liberal in order to fight the woke. And everyone else can fuck off. And that's literally what's going on right now. That's the line that's being drawn in the so-called anti-woke community. You have to be a classical liberal or you are our enemy. Well, guess what? I'm not a classical liberal. Most of the people in my audience are not classical liberals. Most of the people who care about defeating the left are not classical liberals. So why are we buying into this bullshit narrative that we have to agree with a certain political philosophy in order to fight the left? I decline. I will go off and I will do it on my own, rather than engage with a community of people who demand that we bend the knee to their bullshit. One of the things that I said in my book, Actively Unwoke, The Ultimate Guide for Fighting Back Against the Woke Insanity in Your Life, is that you never bend the knee to a struggle session. You never apologize. You never say something that other people want you to say, and they're using mob-like tactics to try to cancel you if you don't say what they want you to say. All of these things are the very definition of woke, and I'm not having it, and I don't think you do either. I don't think you should either. So I'm going to keep doing my thing, and we're going to build something awesome. And we might move away from the term unwoke, and I need people to be flexible about that. But just come on this ride with me. Just come on this ride. I know we're going in the right direction, and I know I've got this figured out more than most people do. And I'll teach you if you want to learn. And I'll create resources for you that you can use. What I need you to do is show up, share my content, support my content if you can, invite your friends, share this information with your friends. I really want to get out there and do more speaking this year than I did last year. It was a priority for me, and I think that it's something that I'm in a very good position to do, especially once I get the book done, the re-education book. That's going to be huge in terms of helping people along, and I'm very excited about it. So that's what I'm working on. And that's the direction that I hope we take for 2025. Let me know what your comments are. Head over to the Substack, Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Leave a comment on the show episode. Just go to the podcast link in the upper menu. That'll take you right to the episode. And I'd love to hear what you have to say about all this. You can always follow me on Twitter, Dr. Carlin B, DrKarlyn. the letter B. Send me a DM if you don't want to send it publicly. My DMs are open on Twitter. It is probably the very best way to get in touch with me. And if you don't want to be on Twitter, well, suck it up, Buttercup. That's where the conversation is. I don't want to be on the internet either, and yet here I am. So open the dang Twitter account. Come on. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a very happy new year. I hope you had a good 2024. Gird your loins for 2025. I think we're in for more hurt than we understand right now from the left. And I'm going to be with you every step of the way. So I appreciate you hanging out. Happy New Year, guys. We'll see you soon.